This video is about Michael Jackson's court, the accusations that were made against him, allegedly by having relationships with children, with boys. And I first heard about this in the early 90s. Maybe it was 1991 or 1992. There were two major accusations against him. And there may have been a third one that was settled out of court that nobody heard about, that was a private issue. When I first heard it, we had the internet, but we didn't have access to all the documents that we have access to now. And I didn't immediately believe the accusation. I'm not the type of person who believes accusations or has full faith in the media. Michael said in the early 1990s, he said he didn't do it. He said the head of Sony is racist. He said they're trying to make me poor because they want my music collection, because he owned, I believe, music by Elvis Presley and the Beatles. And he was claiming that Sony wanted his record collection, his music collection, and they were trying to sue so that he loses money so that he has to sell his collection. Just so you do know, eventually Sony has acquired his music collection. They succeeded at that. Now, as the years went by, there was a second accusation against him. And we now have access to the internet. Now, there's two issues. Number one, I did find some of the court documents from the first trial. And number two, in general, if you try to find a press release from the 1980s or the 1970s or the 1960s, I never found anything like that. So news on the internet is modern news. The older news, and if you look up for something from 1991, at the time I did the research, you could not find it. Maybe you can find it now, but I doubt it. The information is just not out there. It's archived, probably on tape. And there probably is no value at putting it online. So I read one of the accusations. It was written in hand. And before you go to court, they check the viability of the case. And someone has to go in, they call it a deposition, and has to make a statement. And then the judge decides if it goes to trial or not. Based on what I read, I would have to say there was absolutely nothing there. The accusation was false. I did not believe it was a trialable case. I don't understand why the judge let it go to court. And I'm going to tell you about the document that I read. I believe it was 2 pages, front and back, handwritten. There were a few things that were odd about this document. Number one, 99% of the document was written by the boy, allegedly. The boy was talking about how much he loved Michael Jackson. So there was nothing in there that was stating that a crime had been committed. It was saying, like, I love Michael Jackson. I spent time with him. I went to the amusement park. I like his music. You know, we had a lot of fun. That's went on in that case, and it went on in the second trial. The same thing happened. The boys were saying how much they love Michael Jackson. On the document, the last sentence is, after all this, I love Michael Jackson, it says, and then he touched me. And then he touched me. It's 5 words. It doesn't flow with the rest of the document. The rest of the document, it doesn't segue. The rest of the document is about how much he loves Michael Jackson, and it doesn't ease into why he touched him. It just suddenly says it happened. It's like me saying, I'm talking to you right now, next week is my birthday. You know, it just changed. It's like it's changed the subject. The other issue is that on the document, I wish I had a document to show you, on the piece of paper, there was a little bit of space that was completely filled out. From the beginning, every line all the way to the end was completely filled out. And the last 5 words, and then he touched me, occupied a certain amount of space at the bottom corner, which would have been the bottom right corner of the document. And the handwriting was not the same as the rest of the document. All the stuff about how he loves Michael Jackson was a very neat handwriting. It was very well done, and it looked different. And the part, and then he touched me, was sloppily done. And at the time, like the spacing was different between the words, the slant, it looked like different handwriting, it looked like it was sloppy. You could say it looked childish. And at the time I believed, okay, the child wrote the last few words and not the rest. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the child wrote all the nice things in the nice handwriting, and an adult tried to write in childish handwriting and put the "and then he touched me" without the child knowing. So when I saw that document, I said, okay, this is bullshit. I don't believe this. It makes no sense. There's no accusation here. There's no details. There's nothing specific. "And then he touched me" means absolutely nothing and is not a crime. Not a crime to touch someone. So I did not believe it. This is the deposition. Should never have gone to trial. It only went to trial because there are people who have a belief that, well, better be safe than sorry. In this case, the judge should have been a lot wiser. He should have said, give details that suggest that a crime has been committed. Now, in the second case, which was around 10 years later, there were two boys involved. And they were always changing their story. When I was reading press releases before the court case, they were constantly changing their story about what happened. They were also often talking about how much they loved Michael Jackson. When they went to court, they gave their testimony, and during the court session, they changed their testimony. They changed the story. They gave one testimony and then a different testimony. I believe that one of the boys either refused to testify. The boy who was making the accusation, the victim, refused to testify, or he refused to testify something negative that was actually that a crime had been committed. And what the change in the testimony was, which was never heard before the court case. This was new testimony during the court case. The older brother testified, oh, I saw it happen. And what the story was is that Michael was in bed with the younger boy. The younger boy was asleep, so he didn't know it happened. And Michael put his hand on the zipper area, and the other boy saw it from outside the room. He was outside the room, and he looked and he saw Michael Jackson's hand on the area of a person's zipper. I'm assuming that, people wear blue jeans. And they made this story because the child refused to testify about how he was victimized. Now, there were other issues. Now, this story to me sounds nonsense. All the times that the story was changed, they didn't really testify that a serious crime had occurred. And if the victim was asleep and didn't know that it happened, and you're only talking about touching the clothing, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. It's not a serious crime. This is so minor that it's the penalty. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The other problem is the woman, the mother, was accused previously of falsely testifying in court, trying to extort money from somebody else. So, and I don't know, I believe it was in another country, but I'm not sure. But she had a history of making false accusations. I don't know if the kids were involved in court trying to extort money from people. That's another reason why the story should not be believed. Now, there was a guy who interviewed Michael Jackson. I don't remember his name. You can look it up on the internet. And he did a video, and it might have been in the early 1990s because I remember Barbara Walters commenting on it. And he did this video where he spent like a year with Michael Jackson. He made this video, and he interviewed Michael, and there were two important things that came out of this. Number one, the most offensive thing that the creator of the video, the thing that he got most angry and offended about, was that Michael Jackson was in, I believe, an amusement park where he's surrounded by like 15 security guards. He's got fans all over the place. He's with his children. And Michael is shown like this, really happy. And the guy who made the video said, nobody held the child's hand. And he was deeply angry and offended by that. And I thought, that's idiotic. And he said, I had to hold the child's hand. It's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard of. Parents don't have to hold a child's hand every time they walk anywhere. And he was surrounded by security guards. They encircled him in such a way that a person could not break the circle. You could not walk in, and it was a large circle, and there was a lot of room. The child was not in danger. There was no threat. I'm an independent person. I believe that my children should be independent. I don't coddle them. I would not say, I'm going to carry you everywhere. No, you walk on your own. Learn to walk on your own. I'm not always going to be there when you need it. When you need something, I'll be there for you. When you don't need it, you're on your own. You can walk next to me, or in this case, the child was actually walking behind him. But I believe that his trained security staff who have experience with Michael and his children are fully capable of managing any threat that could have happened. I don't believe that the child is safe because the guy who made the video was holding his hand. The child did not show any signs of any fear or trouble or anything like that. And last of all, the security guards probably pay more close attention to the children than Michael. If you know about children, children can get into trouble very easily. They run around. They don't pay attention to what they're doing or where they're going. They trip and they fall down. You have to watch children like a hawk. You got to keep your eye on them all the time. And there were literally 5 or 6 security guards directly behind him with the child directly in front, walking in that direction. Literally were watching what was going on. They weren't. It wasn't just security guards in the front. They were all around. So the ones in the back had complete eye view of what was going on. The child was perfectly safe. And that was what this guy was offended by. You can go rewatch the video. So there was another issue in the video where a child, they asked, did a child ever sleep in your bed? And Michael Jackson said yes. And he said something like, the greatest thing you could do is share your bed with someone. He made some sort of a comment like that. And the guy and the media blew up and said all sorts of horrible things about Michael Jackson, including Barbara Walters, said this child should be with his mom. It's very disrespectful and very sexist that she said that. And because women could say sexist things like that at that time. Nowadays, they might not be able to get away with it. But at that time, a woman could say a child has to be with his mom. You can't say that anymore. I was certainly offended. The reason why it was fake news when they were saying, oh, Michael sleeps with these boys in his bed is because Michael never said that. It was something that was manufactured by the media. During the interview, he said, did anyone ever sleep in your bed? Any of these boys sleep in your bed? He said, yes. And he said, where did you sleep? He said, on the floor. That's what Michael Jackson said. Why did the media and people say that Michael was sleeping in the bed with the boy when Michael never said that? He said he slept on the floor. It's fake news. That doesn't make Michael guilty of anything. And there have been many people, the boy from Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin, I believe his father testified that children fall asleep all the time. The children do not stay awake all day long. They take naps. I remember in kindergarten, we had nap time during school where we would all lie down and they would turn the lights out. And I've been around kids, and old people do it too. You know, they spontaneously fall asleep. And I remember driving with my cousin. We weren't even going outside the city, and he fell asleep in the car more than once. You know, it happens to people. So children fall asleep, and he testified that the children would occasionally fall asleep in weird places, like they would be on an amusement park ride, and the child would fall asleep. So basically, I'm not saying that Michael Jackson didn't do anything because we don't know his private life. But what we do know is that the accusations do not hold merit. The accusations would not stand up in a valid court with a valid jury. I've been on jury duty. Jurors are crazy. The jury duty that I did, I could not believe the insane things that people said about the case, because there were 3 white people, 9 black people on the jury. The defendant was black. He was absolutely guilty. Only the white people would – no, everybody – when they said, do you think he did it? Everybody raised their hand. Okay, who says he's guilty? all the black people lowered his hand. So they believed that he did it, but he was not guilty. He was obviously guilty. And jurors are absolute nonsense. The other example, okay, so I believe that Michael Jackson is innocent, and I'm very saddened by what happened to him. I'm also going to say I'm not a fan of Michael Jackson. I could care less about his music. He did have some nice songs. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Sometimes I like listening to his music. In Peru, everybody listens to Michael Jackson. I heard Michael Jackson music all the time when I was in Peru. It's like a daily occurrence. If there's a radio playing, you'd hear Michael Jackson on the radio. And I feel sorry for what happened to him and what happened to his family. Okay, so thank you for watching the video. Post your comments below.